from Different Dimension Gaming, coming at you with my casual, fun Cyber Dragon deck profile. Cyber Dragon was once one of the best cards in the game. It was once a very competitive deck, but just the current state of Yu-Gi-Oh! It just can't keep up anymore. But it's still a very fun deck to play just casually with your friends or locals. But with that being said, let's get right into it. We're going to start, of course, with 3 copies of Cyber Dragon. If your opponent controls a monster and you don't, you can special summon it from your hand. 3 copies of Galaxy Soldier. You can discard another light monster from your hand, special summon it from your hand to the field, and if you do, you can add a Galaxy card from your deck to your hand. Important to know, summoning it is not once per turn, but searching with it is. 3 copies of Cyber Dragon Core. When this card is normal summon, you can add 1 Cyber Spell Trap from your deck to your hand. If your opponent controls a monster and you don't, you can banish it from your graveyard to special summon 1 Cyber Dragon monster from your deck. You can only use 1 Cyber Dragon Core effect per turn, and only once that turn. And while on the field, this card's name becomes Cyber Dragon. Two copies of Cyber Dragon Veer. This card's name becomes Cyber Dragon while on the field or in the graveyard. If you normal or special summon a Cyber Dragon, except during the damage step, you can special summon this card from your hand in defensive position. You can only use this effect with Cyber Dragon Veer once per turn. Each Cyber Dragon you control gains 500 attack and defense. 3 copies of Cyber Dragon Nasher. This card's name becomes Cyber Dragon while on the field or in the graveyard. You can discard 1 other monster to special summon this card from your hand. If this card is normal or special summon, you can target 1 machine monster with 2100 attack or defense in your graveyard, special summon it. Also, you cannot summon a monster the rest of this turn except for machine monsters. You can only use each effect of Cyber Dragon Nasher once per turn. 2 copies of Cyber Dragon Hers. This card's name becomes Cyber Dragon while on the field or in the graveyard. You can only use each of the following effects of Cyber Dragon Hers once per turn. If this card is special summoned, you can make this card's level become 5. If this card is sent from to the graveyard, you can add 1 other Cyber Dragon from your deck or graveyard to your hand. So, just important things to know that Hers, Nasher, Veer, and Core all get the name Cyber Dragon while in the graveyard or on the field, because this deck does revolve around Cyber Dragon itself. They just made everything Cyber Dragon all the time. And for the last of the monsters, we're going to play 2 copies of Yugioh, the Star Destroying Kaiju. Tribute an opponent's monster to special summon it to your opponent's side of the field. If your opponent controls a Kaiju, you can special summon it from your hand. So if you happen to open 2, or if you search one with one of your spells, give 1 to your opponent, summon 1 to your side of the field, and then you can contact Fuse both of them away if you want to. And moving on to the spells, we're going to play 3 copies of Cyber Emergency. Add 1 light machine monster that cannot be normal summoned or set, or 1 Cyber Dragon monster from your deck to your hand. The activation of this card's owner possession was negated by your opponent's card effect and sent to the graveyard. You can discard 1 card, add this card to your hand. You can only activate 1 Cyber Emergency per turn. So if you activate Cyber Emergency and your opponent negates the activation, discard a card, add it back to your hand, and then activate it again. 3 copies of Machine Duplication. Target 1 machine monster you control with 500 or less attack. Special summon up to 2 monsters with that same name from your deck to the field. So important thing to know about this is that because all of your low-level Cyber Dragons are treated as Cyber Dragon on the field, if you have Hers or Nasher or Core on the field, you can use Machine Duplication to summon 2 copies of actual Cyber Dragon from your deck to the field. Two copies of Cyber Repair Plant. If Cyber Dragon is in your graveyard, you can activate one of these effects. If you have 3 or more Cyber Dragons in your graveyard, you can activate both effects. You can add 1 light machine monster from your deck to your hand, or you can shuffle 1 light machine monster from your graveyard into your deck. So if you have 3 in the graveyard, activate both effects, or you can activate 1 effect. Really good card to search out anything you could possibly need, because everything you're playing is a light machine. You can basically says search any monster in your deck, as long as Cyber Dragon's in your graveyard. 2 copies of Cyber Rev System. Special summon 1 Cyber Dragon from your hand or graveyard. It cannot be destroyed by card effects. Easy way to get another body on the field, easy way to activate your Hers, your Nash, or whatever you need to do. I'm playing 2 copies because I've always found myself needing a second copy in a grind game, but you really only need 1 copy to play. 2 copies of Overload Fusion. You can summon 1 Dark Machine monster from your extra deck by banishing fusion monsters listed on it from your field or graveyard. So a lot of your Cyber Dragon fusions are actually dark monsters, so what you do is you banish from the graveyard to summon them to the field. And to pair with our Overload Fusion, we're going to play Cyberload Fusion. You can summon 1 fusion monster from your extra deck that lists Cyber Dragon as a material by shuffling the fusion materials from your field or banish pile into the deck. A monster you control cannot attack the rest of its turn except for that fusion monster. You can only activate 1 Cyberload Fusion per turn. So a really easy way to work these 2 together is that you activate Overload Fusion, banish from the graveyard, and then Cyberload Fusion shuffle back from the banish pile back into your deck. Easy way to just keep resources within your deck while putting bodies on the field. And then for the 1-outs, we're going to play 1 Power Bond, 1 Instant Fusion, 1 Monster Reborn, 1 1-for-1, and 1 Called by the Grave. Power Bond is just a polymerization, but for machine monsters, and they doubles the attack of that monster while it's on the field, but you take that monster's original attack points as damage in the end phase. Instant Fusion, pay 1,000 life points, special summon 1 level 5 or lower fusion monster from your extra deck, but it cannot attack and it's destroyed in the end phase. Monster Reborn, bring a monster back from either player's graveyard, 1-for-1, discard a monster, special summon 1 level 1 monster from your deck, and Call by the Grave just to stop your opponent's hand traps or Monster Reborn targets that they might use it against you. And for the traps, we're going to play 2 Cybernetic Overflow and 1 Cybernetic Revolution. Cybernetic Overflow is banish Cyber Dragons with different levels from your hand, field, or graveyard. Destroy as many opponent's monsters up to that number banished. If this card is destroyed by a card effect, add 1 Cyber Spell Trap from your deck to your hand. You can only use each effect of Cybernetic Overflow once per turn. So again, a really good way to pair with your Cyberload Fusion, banish from the graveyard, and then shuffle them all back into the deck. And then Cybernetic Revolution, tribute 1 Cyber Dragon, special summon 1 fusion monster from your extra deck that lists Cyber Dragon as a fusion material. It cannot attack directly and is destroyed during the end phase of the next turn. You can only activate 1 Cybernetic Revolution per turn. So it's a really easy way to get, if you get stuck with one of your smaller Cyber Dragons, like your Core or your Hers or your Nasher, you shuffle them back, you send them to the graveyard, and summon a big guy to replace them. It just can't attack directly, and it's destroyed in the end phase of the next turn. And then I'm going to play 1 copy of Chimera Tech Mega Fleet Dragon. Needs 1 Cyber Dragon monster, plus 1 or more materials in the extra monster zones. Cannot be used as fusion material, and must first be special summoned from your extra deck by sending the above monsters you control from either field to the graveyard. You do not use polymerization. The original attack of this card becomes 1,200 times the number of fusion materials for its special summon. So if you control Cyber Dragon, you can just target a monster in your opponent's extra monster zone, fuse it away, summon Cyber Mega Fleet Dragon, its attack becomes 2,400, or you can use Cyber Dragon, 1 there and 1 there, its attack becomes 3,600. One copy of Cyber End Dragon. Needs 3 Cyber Dragons to summon it. Must be fusion summoned using the above cards. If it attacks a defense position monster, inflict piercing battle damage. The original boss monster of the deck, fell out of favor for a long time because you didn't have the resources to make it, but now that you can banish from the graveyard and shuffle back from the banish pile, it makes it a lot easier to summon this card. We're going to play one copy of Cyber Twin Dragon. It needs 2 copies of Cyber Dragon to fusion summon it. It can only be done with the above fusion materials. This card can make a second attack during each battle phase, and this is probably your best card to use with instant fusion, because the only thing that attacking for 2800 twice is attacking with 5600 twice. And then in the end phase, instead of taking the 4000 you would take from Cyber End Dragon, you'll take 2800 from Cyber Twin Dragon. We're going to play one copy of Chimera Tech Over Dragon and one copy of Chimera Tech Fortress Dragon. Chimera Tech Over Dragon needs Cyber Dragon plus 1 or more machine type monsters. Must be fusion summoned. It cannot be summoned by other ways. When this card is fusion summoned, send all other cards you control to the graveyard. The original attack and defense of this card becomes equal to the number of fusion materials listed on it times 800. Each turn, this card can attack your opponent's monsters up to the number of fusion materials used for its fusion summon. And Chimera Tech Fortress Dragon needs Cyber Dragon and 1 or more machine monsters. Cannot be used as fusion material. Must first be special summon from your extra deck by sending the above cards from either field to the graveyard. The original attack of this card becomes 1000 times the number of materials used for its special summon. So again, really easy way to use your smaller Cyber Dragons to fuse away them and your Kaijus or your opponent's machine monsters, fuse them away, and summon out a fusion monster that can do some more damage. We're going to play 2 copies of Chimera Tech Rampage Dragon, 2 or more Cyber Dragon monsters. A fusion summon of this card can only be done with the fusion materials. When a card is fusion summoned, you can target spell traps on the field up to the number of monsters used for this card's fusion summon, destroy them. Once per turn, you can send up to 2 light machine monsters from your deck to the graveyard, and if you do, for each monster sent to the graveyard this way, this card gains 1 additional attack per each battle phase this turn. This is a really easy way to get materials in the graveyard and an easy way to loop your Cyber Dragon cores. Because using this effect, if you send Cyber Dragon Core and Cyber Dragon Hers, you can use Hers to put Core back in your hand, and it gives you a good normal summon for the next turn. Also, it's a good way to attack your opponent repeatedly, and it's a good way to clear back row on the field. And then moving into the Xyz monsters, we're going to play 2 copies of Cyber Dragon Nova and 2 copies of Cyber Dragon Infinity. Cyber Dragon Nova needs 2 level 5 machine monsters. Once per turn, you can detach 1 material from this card, target 1 Cyber Dragon in your graveyard, and special summon that target. Once per turn, quick effect, you can banish 1 Cyber Dragon from your hand or face-up monster zone, and this card gains 2100 attack until the end of this turn. If this card in your possession is sent to the graveyard by your opponent's card effect, you can special summon 1 machine fusion monster from your extra deck. Cyber Dragon Infinity needs 3 level 6 light machine monsters, or once per turn you can Xyz summon it on top of Cyber Dragon Nova. Transfer its materials to this card. Gains 200 attack per each material attached to it. And once per turn, you can target 1 face-up attack precision monster on the field, attach it to this card as face-up Xyz material. When a card or effect is activated, quick effect, you can detach 1 material from this card, negate the activation, and if you do, destroy it. So Cyber Dragon Infinity is an Omni-Negate and one of the better cards in the deck, if not the best card in the deck, because it is a negate and it absorbs stuff on your opponent's side of the field or your own. Another easy way to get something like if you summon Cyber Dragon Hers, you get stuck, summon Infinity, just absorb Hers so you don't see as much extra damage. And rounding up the Xyz monsters, we're going to play 1 copy of Constellar Pleiades, 2 level 5 light monsters. Once per turn, quick effect, you can detach 1 material from this card, target 1 card on the field, return it to the hand. An easy way to deal with cards that are hard activations of once per turn. It doesn't negate the activation, but it can bounce it back to your opponent's hand. It can also bounce your opponent's normal summon or a special summon or a field spell that they would activate. And moving on to the Link monsters, we're going to play 2 copies of Cyber Dragon Seeger and 1 Salamangreat Almirage. Cyber Dragon Seeger needs 2 machine monsters, including a Cyber Dragon monster. And once per turn, but during the battle phase, if this card has not declared an attack, you can target one Cyber Dragon monster on your side of the field. It gains 2100 attack until the end of this turn. Your opponent takes no battle damage from battles involving this card for the rest of the turn. So, the way that this card works is you target another monster you control, like say your Cyber Dragon Hers. It gains 2100 attack. Your opponent takes no battle damage from Seeker, specifically. So if you were to use your, say, your Cyber Dragon Infinity, or your Cyber Twin Dragon, or your Cyber End Dragon, it gains 2100 attack, and your opponent doesn't take damage from Cyber Dragon Seeker. So if you follow me, if you don't mind, you Power Bond into Cyber Twin Dragon, you have Cyber Dragon Seeker out. Cyber Twin Dragon then gains an additional 2100 attack, making it 7900 attack, and it 7700 attack, and it can attack your opponent twice. And Salamangreat Almirage needs one normal summon with 1000 or less attack. Quick effect, you contribute this card, target one monster you control. It cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects this turn. When a normal summon monster you control is destroyed by battle while this card is in your graveyard, you can special summon this card from your graveyard. You can only use each effect of Salamangreat Almirage once per turn. This is the best way to get something like Cyber Dragon in your graveyard. So you open Cyber Dragon Core, summon it, search a Cyber spell, like your Cyber Repair Plant, link it away into Almirage, and then activate your Repair Plant to search out another card from your deck. But that's going to be it for this deck. Again, just a casual, really fun deck that I enjoy playing. I've been playing Cyber Dragon for a long time, and it's one of my all-time favorite decks. Please let us know what you think down below. We're going to have Dragon Link put up next week. We're going to play Pure Rockets and then Dragon Link. We're going to have Rockets posted on Tuesday, Dragon Link posted on Thursday, so stay tuned for that. Make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.